Hey there, today I'm going to be talking about a duo of characters that on their own seem fine, but together have a very vicious dynamic. My name is Nate, and welcome to the Gamers Guild. One of my favorite things about this game is seeing really cool interactions between two characters that show their teamwork or relationship from the comics translate onto the battlefield. We have seen this with characters like Groot and Rocket, Tony and Steve, and of course Proxima and Corvus. But Laura and Gabby take it in a whole new direction. But before we dive into that, I want to give a couple of shout-outs to the guild sponsors, Tritex Games based in the EU, and War Room Hobbies based here in Tennessee. Both are great local gaming stores that have game nights at their store and are supporting their local communities. So if you're shopping online anyways, please consider using them as an option to support an LGS instead of a big warehouse company. And to help beat those prices out though, I have some codes that will save you even more off of their already discounted prices. If you use the code TRITEXGGCP5 at checkout, you'll save an extra 5% off of Tritex's MCP selection. And if you check out at War Room Hobbies, you can use the code MCP2022 for an extra 10% off of your order. And if you are already shopping from your LGS, that's awesome. Keep supporting them. We understand. But if you are wanting a way to support the Guild's videos or podcasts, check out our Patreon page. For as little as $1 a month or $12 a year, you can help us continue to put out content for Marvel Crisis Protocol as a podcast and here on YouTube. We also have a monthly giveaway thanks to Tritex. All you need to do to enter is be subscribed to the channel and leave a comment on a video the same month that video was released. And enough about all of that, let's talk about a Weapon X project and the Honey Badger. And no, I'm not talking about Brian Dawkins and Tyrann Mathieu. X-23 has the alter ego of Laura Kinney. She has 5 stamina, moves medium, is size 2 and 3 threat. She has 3 physical and energy defense, but only 2 mystic defense. Her first attack is a nasty one though. Adamantium Slash is a physical attack with a range of 2, strength of 5, and cost of 0. It will gain her power equal to the damage dealt, and if you get a wild, the attack will both give the enemy character the bleed condition, as well as trigger Pierce, letting you change one of the opponent's crits, wilds, or blocks to a blank, hopefully netting you some extra damage and power gained. So all in all, a really nice builder. Her second attack is Claw Rush. It is also physical, but this one has a range of 3, strength of 6 for a cost of 2. And it has 2 really nice abilities tacked onto it. We see Pierce come in once again on a wild, but there's also guaranteed medium advance after the attack is resolved. This is one of my favorite types of spenders in the game after playing a lot of Baron Zemo. The extra medium move gives a lot of versatility to what a character can do on their turn. And this one gives Pierce instead of bleed on the wild, which is just rather rude of her. And of course, we have a ton of superpowers to back all of this up. First is a reactive ability called Frenzy. It costs 2 power and triggers when Laura dazes or KOs an enemy character with an attack during her activation. After that attack is resolved, she can advance short and then make an Adamantium Slash attack. And thankfully, this ability can only be used once per turn. Then we have 4 different innate powers, the first of which is Adamantium Skeleton. Like her older brother, this will make her count as size 3 instead of 2 when determining if this character can be thrown by an enemy effect or special rule, and when she is a collision with another character or terrain feature. One key difference here is that her Adamantium Skeleton doesn't care about pushes like Wolverine's, just throws. Next up we have Assassin Training. This will let her reroll any 1 die in her attack and defense rolls. She also has Healing Factor 2, which will let her recover 2 health at the end of her activations. And most unique of all of these is one called Big Sis. It says if an allied Gabrielle Kinney, aka Honey Badger, within range 3 of her is damaged by an enemy effect, after that effect is resolved, this character may advance towards that character, the damaged Gabby. And we'll talk more about that a little bit more once we've seen the Honey Badger's card, but there are no changes on her injured side. So, as a standalone character, she is very reminiscent of my favorite core box character to put anywhere I can, Baron Zemo. She isn't quite as mobile, admittedly, without a long move and charge, but for what she lacks in it, she makes up for it in her increased damage output. Getting Pierce on both of her attacks, along with the innate reroll and Frenzy, all point to her being in just kind of all in on the attack your opponent strategy. And from the looks of it, she has all the tools she will need to get that job accomplished. And while not as nimble as the wily Zemo, she still has a good bit of maneuverability between her spender and getting to trigger Frenzy. She does have the slight downside of the typical stats of a 3-threat character, with some average and below average defenses and an average stamina value. She does have healing factor at least. The problem will be getting her to survive 2 attacks and maybe a throw all in one turn before she can get to use that handy feature. At this point, the affiliation list isn't out, but thanks to AMG, we know that Laura and Gabby are both in X-Force, and it feels like a safe assumption that they will also both be in on the X-Men. And I'll talk more about these affiliation options a bit more once we talk about Honey Badger, because like Rocket and Groot, these two feel a lot more like a 5-threat character spread across 2 models. So let's go ahead and talk about Honey Badger, aka Gabrielle Kinney. She has 5 stamina, moves medium, is size 2 for 2 threat. She has a physical defense of 3 and 2 energy and mystic defense, so not exactly durable. Her first attack is a physical claw sash. It has a range of 2, strength of 5 for no power. She'll gain power equal to the damage dealt though, and if you get a wild, the attack will bleed the enemy character. So really a pretty decent builder for a 2-threat character. Her spender is called Hamstring. It also has a range of 2, strength of 5, but costs 3 this time. For that extra 3 power, the attack has 2 abilities. First, if you deal the target damage, they are slowed and bleeding. And secondly, if you roll a wild, the attack gains elusive, which will let her advance medium after the attack is resolved. 3 power is a decent chunk of change, so maybe if Gabby is just full on power, or you are needing to slow an enemy character, it can be helpful, but outside of that, I'm iffy on this spender. Moving on to her powers, we have a reactive Too Dangerous to Ignore, which costs 2 power and can be triggered when an enemy character within range 2 attacks another allied character. Honey Badger then becomes the target of that attack. So the up-close and personal bodyguard, which works out really well considering that she has an innate power that works exactly like Laura's Little Sis. And it will let Honey Badger move medium if an allied Laura within range 3 is damaged by an enemy effect. So then, getting to within range 2 of the character beating up on Laura, Gabby becomes Too Dangerous to Ignore and can help tank or at least take a hit for X-23 since the Honey Badger isn't too resilient herself. She does have healing factor 1 to help out a little bit, but the far more interesting innate power is called Ankle Biter. It says this character cannot contest, interact with, or hold objective tokens, but when an enemy character within range 1 of this character is attacked by another allied character, the enemy character rolls 1 less defense dice. So Honey Badger is a walking incinerate condition for enemy characters. Now, sure, she isn't very helpful with objectives like Nebula, but she also has a very interesting tactic card to help fix that problem. And before I read about Jonathan, I do want to mention that when we look at her injured side, she does go down to 4 stamina. Alright, so let's talk about Jonathan the Unstoppable. It is an unaffiliated, active team tactic card that only Honey Badger can play by spending 2 power. She then places a Jonathan token within range 1 of herself, and while Jonathan is in play, it contests an objective token as if it were an injured allied character. If an enemy character ends a movement within range 1, remove the token from the board. So, it's a neat trick, but can be very easily disrupted, especially after round 1. But there is more to this card. During the cleanup phase, if an allied Honey Badger is on the battlefield, and there is no allied Jonathan token on the battlefield, you may return this card to your available team tactic cards, thus allowing you to play it again. So what was a one-and-done neat trick can now be an absolute thorn in your opponent's side. Basically, Gabby gets a tactic card that lets her use half of Mystique's leadership, if that gives you an idea of how nice this is. Alright, so those are the key things that we need to know about these two before doing an overall look at what they're going to be really good at and where they aren't quite so stellar. If you're going to only be bringing one of these characters, my vote would be to bring Laura. She can do far more than hold her own in a fight, and can probably have some really mean turns, especially when you consider Frenzy. Gabby is still a 2 threat, and that on her own will be useful for the places where she is affiliated, so the X-Force and the X-Men will be grateful for that, but her inability to do anything with objectives without Jonathan is hampering to say the least. And without Laura, she is just a bodyguard that can be pretty easily dealt with lackluster defenses and stamina, especially since she doesn't have anything to help keep her alive outside of her healing factor 1. And out of affiliation, if you aren't bringing the duo, you're just looking for a 2-threat bodyguard character, Okoye is going to be your better bet. However, when you put these two together on the board, well, good things seem to line up. Honey Badger will be able to ensure that Laura can stay alive long enough to get an activation, and if Little Sis got to trigger, she is probably within ankle biter range to let X-23 do some Weapon X level of massacring. Additionally, these two are going to be gross in X-Force, where you're already bringing a lot of exceptional healing to help keep those key members alive. As well, in a team where the Incinerate condition is already pretty rampant thanks to Domino and Cable, Gabby's Ankle Biter will stack with that and reduce defenses by 2. X-23 will get an extra attack reroll, as well as a possible turn of Super Stealth with Pretty Sneaky Sis to help her get into combat safely. And Gabby will still pack a punch for a 2 threat. One last piece of just kind of extra cute tech to consider is maybe bringing Tactical Analysis. Laura doesn't really have a lot of things to spend power on anyway outside of her Spender and Frenzy, so this will let Laura reposition Honey Badger during her turn so that your walking Incinerate condition continues to burn down those who it needs to. So they have the killing thing down and a solution for defense thanks to the bodyguard and healing factor, but what these two are completely lacking in is any sort of board control. And that is unfortunately already a persistent problem within the ranks of the X-Men and X-Force alike. So you will really need to play into the attrition aspect of the game with these two in affiliation, and that's just kind of their one weak point. They also help bring a really nice core of characters for both of these teams at a lower threat level than what they could have previously managed. They also help bring a really nice core of characters for both of these teams at a lower threat level than what they could have previously managed. As well, outside of affiliation kind of stuff, it's always a little bit harder to fit 2 characters instead of just one as the out of affiliation splash. So again, I think Laura is probably more likely to pop up elsewhere, but if you're really dedicated and want to have both of them on the team, they do work really well together, but there's not any one particular affiliation that takes extreme advantage of what they're capable of. And that is all I have for today. If you've enjoyed my thoughts and are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button for a weekly dose of MCP content in the form of reviews, battle reports, and you can also now find the Gamer Guild podcast on several different podcast apps and more. And that is in large part thanks to the Guild Hall, the Gamers Guild Hall on Patreon. The support that comes from that community is overwhelming, and I'm so thankful to have people in the community who are willing to do that for us. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, keep on gaming.